My name is Ksenia, I'm 29. And that morning I discovered my father had sold the hillside house my grandfather left me for $2. 3 million without even asking my consent. If you've ever faced something like this, comment where you're reading from. The sun was barely up, light pushing through the thin curtains in strips across the dining table. I was still in my running shoes, sweat cooling on my neck, when my father slid a folded envelope toward me. The smell of fresh toast and burnt edges of paper from the toaster clung in the air. "Here," he said, his voice clipped as if we were finalizing a business deal. Inside was a personal check for $9,800. The date, May 14, 2024. Memo line. New start. I stared at the ink until the numbers blurred. The hillside house wasn't just property. It was 2,400 square feet of stone and wood, overlooking the river valley, with the oak tree my grandfather had planted the year I was born. Realtors had been sending me unsolicited offers for months, the lowest one at $2. 3 million. You sold it. My voice came out smaller than I intended. He didn't even flinch. Just buttered his toast, knife scraping loud against porcelain. It was a burden. I solved it. Take the check and move on. The paper felt slick in my palm, fragile and insulting at the same time. My throat tightened, but I stayed silent. I didn't know yet that in 8 days, he would be the one receiving an envelope from me. I sat across from him later that day in the living room, the check still folded in my hoodie pocket. The room was stuffy, curtains half drawn, carrying the faint scent of dust and old upholstery. A chipped mug with "World's Best Dad" sat on the coffee table, now filled with lukewarm tea he hadn't touched. "Do you even hear yourself?" I asked. He turned up the volume on the news, ignoring me. Numbers scrolled across the screen, stock tickers, oil prices, red arrows pointing down. He gestured toward it as if that explained everything. "Market's unstable. You wouldn't have managed it. I locked in a good price, 2.3. Cash buyers. No delays." My jaw clenched. I remembered repainting the shutters last fall, spending weekends sanding the porch rail. I remembered kneeling by the oak tree to clear weeds, thinking it would be mine for years to come. Now he was telling me my work, my memories were just leverage for his quick deal. He leaned back, arms crossed. 9,800 is generous. More than you'd save in a year. You should thank me. That was the collision, the small, sharp disrespect that cut deeper than the sale itself. The casual dismissal of everything I had put into that house. I glanced at the clock on the mantel. 2:47 p.m. I wanted to scream, but instead I just stood up, slid my hands into my pockets and said quietly, "I won't do this anymore." I left the room with the mug's slogan still facing me. "World's Best Dad." The words looked like a joke now. A plan began to form, not loud, not impulsive. Just a thin, clear line of resolve. It didn't happen overnight. The pattern had been there for years, like hairline cracks in plaster you stop noticing until the wall finally caves. When I was 16, I watched my father sign papers in a notary's office, selling off a patch of forest my grandfather had meant to preserve. He told me, "Trees don't pay tuition," and used the money for my first year at university. I swallowed the unease back then, gratitude masking resentment. When I was 22, I bought my first used car, a gray 2004 Toyota Corolla. I saved for months waitressing in the evenings. One morning I found the car missing from the driveway. He'd borrowed it for a quick flip, and came back with a handshake and an envelope of bills, $3,200. I cried in my room but never confronted him. At 25, I moved into the hillside house after my grandfather passed. It smelled of cedar and damp earth, with floors that creaked under every step. He had left it to me in writing, his way of saying, "This is your anchor, hold on to it." For a while I believed I was safe. But the pattern threaded through. My father always moving the pieces, calling it practical, efficient, for my own good. And me accepting because I was taught that family loyalty meant silence. This time it was different. The house wasn't just sentimental, it was security. It was rental income, equity, the kind of asset that could buy me freedom. Now, with one signature, he had erased it. What was at stake wasn't only bricks and land. It was my independence, my future, the promise my grandfather made. I sat in my apartment that night, a single lamp glowing yellow on my desk. The check lay under my palm like an insult I couldn't let go. I caught myself whispering out loud, "No, not this time." I didn't know exactly how yet, but the line had been crossed. I would fight. The first clue came folded inside a pile of utility bills and grocery receipts on the kitchen counter of my father's house. He wasn't home. The place smelled faintly of tobacco and boiled cabbage. I was looking for a screwdriver in the junk drawer when a corner of thick paper caught my eye. It was a notary letter, creased in the middle, dated April 29, 2024. The header was embossed in navy ink, the stamp heavy at the bottom. My name was mentioned once, only to confirm I had been notified, which was a lie. The letter confirmed transfer of the hillside property to a corporation in good standing. The sum listed, $2,300,000. Clear as daylight. My fingers tingled. I ran my hand over the raised seal, the texture rough against my skin. It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was paperwork, official, filed. And then attached by a single staple, a second page. A breakdown of goodwill adjustments my father had requested. One line in his neat handwriting. Daughter compensated in full. I snapped a photo with my phone. The screen's shutter sound absurdly loud in the quiet house. I also slid the paper back exactly where I'd found it. Under the gas bill dated the 12th. My breath caught as I whispered into the empty room. Compensated? You think $9,800 covers this? The choice clicked in that instant. It wasn't rage, not even grief. It was sharp clarity. I would not beg. I would document. The evidence was in my pocket now, glowing on my screen. That was enough to move from hurt to action. I didn't trust myself to act on emotion alone. The next morning at 9:15 a.m., I sat in a cramped office that smelled of toner and stale coffee, across from a property lawyer recommended by a coworker. The blinds rattled whenever a truck rolled past on the street outside. I slid my phone across the desk, the photo of the notary letter bright on the screen. He adjusted his glasses, squinting at the lines. $2.3 million, he muttered. And they listed you as compensated? Did you sign anything? I shook my head. Nothing. He handed me a personal check. $9,800. He leaned back, fingers steepled. That's not compensation. That's hush money. If the will left the property to you, he had no authority. This could fall under fraudulent conveyance. You'd have a case. The words "you'd have a case" rang in my ears like a bell. I asked, "What's the deadline?" He flipped open a calendar on his desk, tracing the dates with a pen. You'd need to file a motion within 30 days of the recorded transfer. That means by May 29, 2024. 2 weeks. Less than that, actually 14 days. My throat went dry. The stakes crystallized in numbers. $2,300,000 versus $9,800. 14 days to decide if I was going to roll over or stand up. The lawyer looked at me steadily. You'll need more than a photo. Bank records, proof of inheritance, anything that shows your legal right. Do you still have your grandfather's will? I nodded slowly. Yes. In a fireproof box. My apartment closet. He tapped the desk. Good. Bring it. And don't tell him you came here. When I stepped back out onto the street, the sun hit hot on my shoulders. Traffic roared, a delivery bike nearly clipping me as it sped by. But beneath the noise I felt something steady. Like the ground was shifting in my favor, if I chose to stand. I spent 3 nights gathering documents. The original will with my grandfather's signature dated October 12, 2016, property tax receipts in my name, and the photo of the notary letter. I laid them out on my dining table under the harsh glow of the pendant lamp, the air thick with the smell of takeout noodles gone cold. On the 4th day I met the lawyer again. His office was quieter this time, only the hum of the copier in the next room. I slid the folder across the desk. He glanced through each sheet, nodding once. This is enough to file for an injunction. The word landed heavy. Injunction. A freeze. A legal stop sign. We filled out the paperwork together. My name spelled carefully in black ink, the property address typed line by line. He dictated, I wrote. At one point he looked up and said, "Once this is stamped, they cannot touch the proceeds until the case is heard." By 3:40 p.m., the clerk at the county courthouse slid the stamped document back to me. Case number 24/31/17. The seal shone under the fluorescent lights. It felt like holding a shield. That evening, I drove to my father's house. The driveway gravel crunched under my tires. He opened the door in his usual cardigan, surprise flickering when he saw the envelope in my hand. "What's this?" he asked. I kept my voice steady. "An injunction. Case numbers on the front. The money's frozen until the court decides." His face drained. For once, he didn't have words ready. He looked down at the papers, then back at me, eyes sharp. "You went to a lawyer?" I only nodded. Silence stretched, filled by the faint ticking of the hallway clock. The shock was quiet, but it was there. The first time he realized I wasn't the girl who swallowed his decisions whole. The first ripple came 2 days later. A thick envelope from the county clerk's office arrived at my apartment, edges still cool from the morning air. Inside, confirmation that the funds from the sale $2.3 million were frozen pending litigation. The letter had smelled faintly of ink, the kind that rubs off if you run your finger too hard across the print. That same afternoon my phone buzzed. My father. 3 missed calls in a row, then a short text. "We need to talk. You don't understand what you've done." I didn't answer. Instead, I met with the lawyer again, this time across a cluttered desk stacked with binders. "They can't move the money now," he explained, "which means the buyer's corporation will pressure him to settle. You hold the leverage." Leverage. The word felt almost physical in my hands. The next family gathering came on Sunday at my aunt's house. The table was long, heavy with food. Borscht steaming in wide bowls, pickles glistening in jars, bread still warm. I sat across from my father. He didn't look at me, not once, though his spoon clattered against the bowl louder than anyone else's. When my aunt asked about the house, the silence that followed was a wait. Finally I spoke. "The court is reviewing everything. Nothing is final." Forks paused midair. My father's head snapped up, eyes burning, but he said nothing. He couldn't, not without revealing too much. I felt my heart hammering, but my voice stayed calm. "I'm handling it." That was all. No long explanation, no accusations. Just a line drawn clean in front of everyone who mattered. Walking home later, the night air was sharp and cool. For the first time in weeks, my chest felt lighter. The fight wasn't over, but I had made space for myself. Space where his decisions no longer defined the outcome. A small win, but a real one. The counterstrike came quicker than I expected. On May 22, 2024, a letter slid under my apartment door in a stiff cream envelope. It was from my father's attorney. The claim: I had verbally agreed to accept the $9,800 as final settlement. No proof, just words on a page dressed up in legal formatting. I sat on the couch, letter trembling in my hands, the smell of printer toner sharp in my nose. My pulse climbed, but beneath it was something steadier. Anger turning into precision. I pulled out my phone and scrolled back to the first night, the photo I'd taken of the notary letter. The second page, his own handwriting. Daughter compensated in full. That was the detail they hadn't expected me to have. If I'd agreed, there would be my signature. There wasn't. Just his note, a fabrication exposed by its own ink. The next morning, I carried the printed photo into my lawyer's office, paper warm from the machine. He looked at it, then at me. "This undermines their entire claim. You never signed." He tried to substitute his handwriting for your consent. Judges don't like that. For a moment I closed my eyes, breathing in the smell of dust and paper in the office. Relief mixed with clarity. When his lawyer tried to press me directly by phone that afternoon, I answered calmly. "You'll find there's no signature. Only his handwriting. I'll let the court see it." Silence on the line. Then a curt, "We'll review." That was it, the gap closed, the last thread pulled tight. There was no way back to his version of the story. I set the phone down on the table, next to the chipped ceramic bowl where I kept my keys. The apartment was quiet, sunlight sliding across the floorboards in long strips. For the first time I felt certainty. The truth was no longer mine alone. It was documented, sealed, undeniable. The court hearings will take months, maybe longer. I've accepted that. But life doesn't stop in the meantime. Now I keep the injunction papers in a slim black folder on my bookshelf, beside my passport. The folder smells faintly of leather, A constant reminder that I acted instead of waiting to be erased. I set new boundaries quietly, almost invisibly. I don't take his calls anymore. When relatives ask, I answer simply, "It's in court." No apologies, no extra words. At family meals, if he's there, I sit at the opposite end of the table. I don't raise my voice. I don't bend. Day to day, I focus on what I can control. I've started renting a small studio near the river, 540 square feet, with tall windows that let in light from morning until dusk. On the sill, I keep a ceramic cup with a single oak sapling I planted from an acorn I picked near the old hillside house. Its leaves are tender green reaching. In 3 months, I'll have saved enough to take a certification course for work, something I postponed for years. 6 months from now, I want to be in a different role, with a steady income that doesn't depend on anyone's decisions but mine. I don't imagine reconciliation, and I don't script revenge. What I do imagine is standing in court, documents lined neatly before me, telling the truth as it is. Tonight the air is cool. I leave the windows open. The city hums outside, low and steady. I sit at my desk with a glass of water, the injunction folder within reach, the oak sapling catching the last light. I breathe, and I choose myself.